We got Scott Salem, also known as Scott the Engineer.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Not a problem, man. I love it.
I know you're kind of behind the scenes type of guy, but
Yes, I usually am.
it brings you out a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm used to being on the air, obviously. I've been on the air many times.
Many times before.
Yeah.
What got, when you were a kid, what was radio? Like when you were in the car with your dad, when you're 10 in your teens, what was radio? Was it just radio, 8-track, or what the hell was it?
It was just radio. Radio, it wasn't even FM. It was AM radio. AM radio. My parents used to listen to like Sinatra and Dean Martin and that kind of big band music, in the car. And it was only AM radio, and that's all we had.
There wasn't even FM?
No FM.
Wow.
I mean, in the late 50s, I was like 8 or 9, and that's it, AM. FM didn't start really, it was around, but it didn't really start being put into cars until the early 60s. And then it hit in the late 60s.
Now, when FM came out, was that like the big thing? What was that like? Like when the iPhone came out, everybody was like, "Whoa, the iPhone!"
Yeah, well, FM and color TV came out around the same time.
Shit.
Color TV, ladies and gentlemen. we only had black and white. A little 9-inch black and white TV is what I had in my room.
Wow.
Come on, don't you're making me sound like I'm 120
Well, you're only
years
29.
old. Yeah, right.
You watched the documentary.
I just turned 70 the other day.
Oh, well, congratulations. Not dead.
So, yeah, I mean, it just seems so long ago, but in the 60s, it was just color TV just came out, and FM radio just came out. And the late 60s, we had 8-track tapes. Wow, that was something that you could put in your car and play your own tapes. But FM was the thing. I mean, if you had a car with an FM radio, they played great music on FM because that was stereo. The first time you get stereo in a radio.
Like
yeah.
if you had FM in your car and you picked up a girl, was that an automatic panty dropper?
You got it.
Guaranteed.
You did it, yeah. Yeah, you hit the big time.
On the 8-tracks, how would you record to them? Same way you would a cassette? Or how did the 8-track work?
When you first got DVDs or CDs, you couldn't record to them. So it was the same thing with an 8-track.
Oh, I see. So you would just go in and buy like the Frank Sinatra 8-track.
Yeah, you just go buy a tape, on Frank Sinatra or whoever was out, Zeppelin at that point. They started having rock and roll.
Oh, did you know that?
Yeah, my parents had a Chrysler LeBaron.
Oh, boy. Remember that?
And it had I remember it as a kid, the 8-track, the big gap for the thing to go in. And,
right.
And I don't know if my dad still has them, but I think he had he was a Frank Sinatra guy, Frank Sinatra.
Mm-hmm. And
then, of course, it went down to the cassette tapes. And then you had the CDs, and now we've got nothing.
So, yeah, eventually you could make your own tapes. Like CDs, you were able to burn your own CDs. So eventually you could record on your 8-track at home and make your own tapes. But that didn't last long because cassettes came out a few years later. 8-tracks were only around 4 or 5 years, and then, boom, cassettes were there.
That sucks for that guy who invented that. He probably thought I hit the jackpot 5 years right when it would be about to take off. Boom. Cassette.
You would buy like a accessory 8-track player for your car. Screw it under the dashboard and get it plugged in to the system, and was it would bounce up and down. But yeah, that was how you added an 8-track into your car. I don't even think car manufacturers. It came and went so fast. I don't even think they got to put 8-tracks installed as regular equipment in many cars at all. I'd be damned to find a car that has a built-in 8-track.
It's probably worth $1 gazillion if it does, right?
Yeah, right.
Because they didn't even have time to make the deals with the auto manufacturers before it was the next level.
Yeah, it came and went so fast. Boom, and that was it. So, and then cassettes took over.
That's interesting. Color TV, FM, and color and
8-track.
8-track.
All in the mid to late 60s. Yeah.
All at once.
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Now, when did you get interested in like sound, audio? Did you have any interest at that time in high school?
Yeah, I was in a band, played drums, and so we weren't too good. We were 13, 14 years old.
That's still cool.
You know,
I played the drums too. David Lazorchek.
So I was into music at that point, but the sound thing really came when. Now this is going to sound unbelievable. I had a band. We're 14 years old. The name of the band was The Daybreak. Daybreak. So at the time, I lived in New York, and cousin Bruce Morrow, was one of the biggest jocks in the country, not only New York. He was on WABC, huge station, had it reached many states around the Northeast. They were having a contest. Local bands enter, if you have a local band, enter your contest, you can win a recording contract. So we're 14 years old, and somebody sent an application in for our band. And we get a call one day and like, okay, you've been accepted to come down to the studio and try out to see if you're good enough to enter the contest. And I was like, you got to come in 2 days. I'm like, okay. We're 14 years old. None of us were driving. We had to go from Queens to Manhattan with all our gear. I'm like, okay. So we found our guitarist's mother had a station wagon. It's like, okay, she'll take us, blah, 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 blah. So we get down there. We go into a recording studio, 14, the first time I'm in a recording studio. There's Cousin Bruce, one of the biggest DJs in the country. And that's where it all started for me, really. I was taken away by being in a studio, for the first time at 14 years old. And it blew me away. So
and being around the biggest guy on the planet at the time, right?
Pretty much. He was huge. It was 1967.
And then that set you on your path, pretty much.
Yeah, that did. And then I was 14, and what happened was our lead singer was too scared to come on with us. He quit. Jesus. So he was like, no, I'm not going on embarrassing myself. But it basically was you went in the studio, you set up. You played a song for them first to see if you were even worthy of, who knows, you could be totally crap. So we played the song, and they go, well, guys, you got to limit the time to 3.5 minutes. And this song was 5. And we were not musicians, and we had no way to know how to cut it down to 3.5 in 2 minutes. So we pick another song, and they go, Scott, you're going to sing lead.
Ooh.
I'm like, okay, I know the words, I know the song, but I don't know about it.
So got a shot line
I was singing background all the time, but I said, all right. So we did the song as a rehearsal for the cousin Brucey and the engineers, whoever was in the control room. And then they go, that was really great, guys. Okay, we're going to take it for air.
Well, and you're like,
you're in. Yeah. We didn't win, but you're in the contest.
You made it.
We made it. So we recorded the song. I mean, it was, great. It was a great experience. Cousin Brucey was like, yeah, those guys are tremendous. They're 14 years old and blah, blah, blah. It aired a couple of months. It actually was on the radio in November of 67. We didn't win. We did the contest. We didn't come close, but made
it to the radio.
We made it to the radio in 67. That was my first experience.
How cool was that?
AM radio. It was unbelievable.
What was the name of the song? You remember?
Yeah, I do. The name of the song was Louie Go Home by Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Louie Go Home?
Louie Go Home. But it wasn't their version they did it. We did our own kind of version of it, our own arrangement. So, yeah, it was wicked.
It's funny to think back to, right? And then you pop up on the radio for the first time, not knowing what's in the future.
Right. That was the first time I was on the radio in 1967, but it really shaped my mind of, hey, I want to be in this sound thing, and I want to do this.
And then from that point on, how did you pursue it?
Basically, was a bad student in school. Didn't give a shit.
Like me. I wasn't the best.
Because I knew in my head, I don't need any of this crap. I know what I want to do. So I finished high school rather badly, and then I started college in mechanical engineering, and I did 1 semester of that, and I'm like, no fucking way.
And what was mechanical engineering? What did they even try to
I don't know. It was like, I couldn't even understand, half the words that were. I was like, 1 semester, I'm out. I'm done.
Wrong one, right?
Not happening. And then so it was like 71, around 1971. And I'm like, okay, I knew what I wanted to do. I'm 19 years old. And at that point, there's nothing even closely related to teaching audio engineering, recording studios, nothing.
Was there even a thing called a sound engineer? This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Are you the man your father was? Recent studies have shown that men's testosterone levels have dropped substantially since the 1980s at about an average of 1% per year. Think about how old your father was when he was born. For example, if he was 30, your testosterone levels could be 30% lower than his. Low testosterone levels can have all type of health effects on men. It can affect your mood, sex drive, memory, muscle mass loss, you name it. And yes, low testosterone is more common the older you get, but it can affect men at any age. So let's talk about today's sponsor, Let's Get Checked. You can order a testing kit that will be delivered to you in a discreet packaging with next-day delivery. Once your sample arrives in the laboratory, confidential results will be available from your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. So, if you want to test your hormone levels without having to leave your home, visit trylgc.com/MSCS Media and get 25% off your test using the code MSCS Media. The link is in the description at the top. This episode is sponsored by WestonJohnBoucher.com. Even after a decade of exposure to the fashion industry, while fully immersed in the modeling world, model and future designer Weston John Boucher still hadn't found clothing that checked every box when it came to look, feel, quality, durability, and price. His solution was to create a menswear brand that would bridge the gap between designer-level pieces and reasonable price points without sacrificing quality. Weston's aim was to provide men who prioritize their health with effortless sophistication and style through simplicity of flattering fits, handsome designs, and amazingly comfortable materials. It's time to elevate your style. Experience obtainable luxury by Weston John Boucher at WestonJohnBoucher.com. Use the code Tommy to save 25% off your first purchase, their largest discount ever. I'll tell you right now, it would give Imperial Armani, Giorgio Armani, Page a run for its money. So go to Weston, WestonJohnBoucher.com. Use the code Tommy, Tommy, and save 25% off. Link is in the description below. Or
I mean, they were sound engineers that did record albums. They did commercials. I mean, there were tons and tons of recording studios. I mean, the recording industry was huge at that point. And that's what I wanted to do. So there was no school to learn. You had to learn on the job. And how easy is it to get a job? You know, you come just out of high school and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So I decided, let me get a background in electronics, just so I know something. So I went to RCA Institutes. At the time, it was called RCA Institutes, Electronics School, and I got a degree in electronic engineering. And out of school, when I was graduating, that I applied myself to, that school, because I knew I couldn't fuck around anymore.
you paid attention on that.
Yeah, I paid attention. And as I'm graduating, the school had a jobs board posted. On the jobs board was a job in a recording studio, not as an engineer, obviously. Basically, sweep up and hang around the recording studio and duplicate tape.
Like intern. Do what nobody else wants to do.
That's right, pretty much.
But get the experience of being there and everything.
$90 a week in 1974.
Wow.
Pretty good for 1974, right?
Yeah, $90 a week in 1974. I said, fuck it, I'm in the studio. Why, I gotta do this. I was living at home still. I was 21 years old.
And back then, what did it cost to rent, say, a 1-bedroom studio in New York?
How the fuck do I know?
I'm just trying to compare. Like, if you're making $90 a week, what would that be now?
What year did you say?
74.
Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have cost more than $300 a month for a studio apartment.
But that was your dream, so fuck it.
But I was living at home still.
And you're living at home, so it's all pocket money.
Whatever. It was,
Somewhat
gas was 50 cents a gallon. Or
Why'd you say?
Less than that, probably.
Don't say that too many times or we'll get shot.
Nixon was president.
So you do the intern, you're sweeping up everything, you're cutting tape.
I'm learning how to duplicate tape. The guys were really nice at work that I work with, do this. And in my spare time, I was down in the studio. We have 2 floors, one floor to duplicating and one was the studios floor. I was down in the studios and just watching and, learning from all these guys. And in less than a year, I was an engineer. I was just working my ass off. Do it, learn. These guys were like, you're a whiz kid. And my boss was great. He hired me. He was like, yeah, you're going to be an engineer. And then less than a year, I was an engineer.
Now, with that, when you became an engineer in less than a year, how much of the schooling that you paid attention to did you actually apply to being none of it?
Maybe 10%.
Really?
10%.
Even then?
Yeah, maybe 10%.
Even it's so
nothing,
funny.
really nothing. But it was good. I had a background in electronics.
Yeah.
If something would break, I kind of would have some indication of, okay, it's a resistor at that point, and we had resistors and capacitors, and you had to solder things together. There weren't chips that you just plug them in. You had actual wiring that you had to do. But yeah, so I was an engineer, and it was all, I had to learn the physical movements of cutting tape and that kind of thing, and learning how to operate the machinery. But the basics and I try to tell everybody who's interested in the career, the basics are listening. That's your job. You're an audio engineer. You got to listen for the right sound of what you are looking for or what the people that you're working for are looking for. That's it. You got to know everything else, but the most important thing is to listen.
And I would think also not get too caught up in what's going on. So, for instance, let's just say like an older guy that I know of, and I know you know of, like Imus.
Yeah.
Say you're the sound guy for Imus, and you really like Imus. You can't be too focused on what Imus is doing. You got to focus on. You got to listen. Fuck the show.
You can't.
Yeah.
You're not even concentrating on the content.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, you're concentrating on the actual sound of the content. You could give a shit what's going on content wise, but you're trying to get the best sound out of what you're doing, music, voice, whatever you're doing. You're trying to make it the best that it can be. So yeah, fuck what's going on with musically, in terms of the content, and fuck what's going on in terms of whoever's speaking. You're just looking for the quality of the sound, and that's
not only
what I did. If you listen to the content, you're fucked. No, because you're not paying attention to what you're doing then.
Right, because you're not, especially with something like music, because you got to really play with it with music back then, or no?
Oh, yeah. I didn't do a lot of music because the studio I got that job in was more commercials and educational materials and stuff. And back then, there were no videos. There were no VHSs. There was nothing. They would do these multimedia slide presentations.
Sounds like you really liked on those.
Well, they were educational. They would go to schools. I don't know if you ever went to school and you saw they would have a slide projector and they would have sound and they would sync up, and that's what I did in that studio.
Yeah.
You would hit these tones that would be on a separate track that would trigger the pictures to go along with the voice. So that's how I learned. I mean, but it was a great learning experience. It wasn't just, they didn't throw me into the fire, so to speak. Eventually we only had 4 tracks at the time in the studio. One called Scully, Scully, who made mostly the 2 and the 4 tracks. Not Vin, but the guy's first name I can't remember, but it was Scully was his last name. He designed these machines. So 4 tracks was basically all we had at that point. They were just coming out with 8 and 16, but we didn't have that yet. I mean, the Beatles, if you think about it, I find that Sgt. Pepper's is the most miraculous recording ever done. It was done with 2 4-track machines, separate machines that were synced together to make 8.
And what's a 4-track machine?
You can only record 4 tracks, you know.
Oh, shit.
Now, like today, it's unlimited, you know, because it's all digital. You can record 2,000 tracks. Like you put, you know, separate things. You record the piano on 1 or 2, drums go on like 2 tracks or 4 tracks, depending on what the mix that you want.
Today we would call it a timeline, right? You would put 4 different timelines.
Yeah.
You know, that, yeah, I get it.
So,
I get it now.
you know, we used 1/2-inch tape, and then when they came out with the 8 tracks, you used 1-inch tape. It's that thick. And then, so the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's, when they did that was, and then if you saw the Beatles documentary on Apple,
Yeah, I did.
they had to use George Harrison's 8-track machine because the company didn't even have one to give to the Beatles. I mean, that's crazy. But when they did Sgt. Pepper's, it was done on 2 4-track machines, synced up together. And then, I mean, the engineering on that album is just amazing for the time. It was done in '67 with just limited equipment.
Done way before the time that it was
Right.
capable of being
That's right.
done.
It was
right?
they were pushing the limits of what they can do, and you can't tell. It's so perfect. It's just amazing.
And you still hear it today.
Yeah,
That's what's not. You still hear it today in 22. You know.
yeah. So yeah, I found at that point in my life, and there may be others that came along that were better, but for that point, it was like, holy crap, this is unbelievable what they did to record that album.
And then once you became a sound engineer, what was your first job?
Well, that was my first job.
Or I mean, after that, I'm sorry.
In the studio. I worked there for 6-7 years, getting experience, and then moved to another studio, and then worked there. And then my first radio job was probably 1982 at WABC. Back to that, WABC, where I got my first radio experience in 1967. So in 1982, here I am. I get hired by WABC.
Funny.
and WPLJ, which was the FM affiliate of both together, owned by ABC. And my first day on that job was the last day of music radio.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, they killed music in 1982 in New York because AM was dead for music. At that point, I told you, FM took over.
Yeah, like when I grew up, we would always put AM on for sports and news.
Right.
We'd always listen to the Phillies.
Exactly.
It was 610,
Exactly.
WIP.
Right, WIP.
Yeah, you know that.
Now we have FAN in New York, and there's millions of others right now. But yeah, so AM was converting to talk and sports and stuff like that, and news, and FM was the big thing. So, but I worked for an AM and an FM station. So the first day was the last day of music radio. I met the DJs was still working there that I met in 1967. Like Cousin Brucey was still there, and blah blah blah. But yeah, so that was my first job in radio, and then I worked for 4 years there and got experience in radio and kind of did. It was interesting and.
Now, like in 82, could you swear? Could you say the F word?
Couldn't say anything.
Nothing. They were strict. It was
you
real
couldn't say
tight.
damn. You really couldn't say God. I mean,
Really?
they didn't want anything like that.
Wow, I thought it would be loose.
No, not in 82.
No.
It was still very, very tight.
And then in 86, you move on. You get another job. You become the engineer of that.
That's correct.
And then with that, now what are you dealing with then? Because that's cassette tapes. Is that what you were using?
Well, we were still using 1/4-inch tape to record bits and stuff. We could mention where I worked.
That's up to you.
I worked at a station called K-Rock with
Yeah.
Howard Stern, and I worked for the Howard Stern Show, and a great experience, obviously. And I didn't know at the time what it was. I didn't know Howard. He had been fired from NBC in New York. I wasn't really a listener of his because I was working at other radio stations, so I didn't really have time. But he was on. I was working, so I didn't get to know him. But yeah,
Well, I should ask now if that's okay. How did you fall? How did you even get called about that job? How did that
it's amazing.
job even fall into your
really,
hands?
really. So when they say it's not, you don't only have to be good, you have to be lucky.
Yeah.
I have both going for me at the time. I was good, but you had to get lucky. So at working at ABC, I got to know a lot of the DJs and everything. And then the FM station was changing its format. They were AOR rock and roll. Album-orientated rock is what they called it back then, AOR.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it was. It was just, album cuts from radio. So at the end of 85 or maybe the end of 84, they were switching their format from AOR to pop. When the Michael Jackson album came back, Thriller came out, that was like, this is like everything. Eddie Van Halen was on the album, so it was kind of like a rock pop kind of thing. So
now I was 4 when that came out, so I don't even remember. I remember getting the shit when Bad came out and all that other shit. But how big when that came out?
that album
just took over everything.
It took over everything. It kind of melded all kinds of music together for that few years in there. When he put Van Halen on it, made it dance and rock and pop, and everything going on that album was amazing. It just was just such a different sound at the time.
Take away whatever people say about him. Michael Jackson, the performer, the singer, the sound, how special was he as far as that?
Well, I mean, he was incredibly creative, and he went so far as to change the music industry, like the Beatles did, when they came along, like Zeppelin when they came along.
Zeppelin, yeah.
So he was one of those innovators that just took it to the next level. Not as far as rock and roll, but, including Van Halen, who were pretty big at that point themselves in the early 80s, into his music. It was like an incredible thing.
Just boom, shot him right up.
Right, yeah. So that was like in 84. So the station decided to change its format to pop. Okay, whatever. Okay. They started firing all the DJs, all the rock and roll, FM, deep voiced guys, and I knew them all. So another year goes by, excuse me, and then I get laid off of where I was because they were bought out and they were laying off people. I didn't have a lot of seniority, but I knew a few people that had went to work for this station called 92.3 K-Rock.
K-Rock. Nobody doesn't know K-Rock, I don't think, on the planet.
Right. In New York, a couple of the jocks who were at PLJ were working at this new station called 92.3 K-Rock. So I called my buddy Jimmy Fink. I said, Jim, if you find out if there's any engineering jobs or whatever, you let me know. Okay, we'll let you know. So it turns out, at the beginning of 86, I get a call from my friend. He says, Howard Stern is working here. He's in the afternoons, but he's going to mornings in February, and they're looking for a new engineer for him for morning show. I said, and they want to interview you. I said, okay, great. Went in for my interview. Somewhere in early January of 86, my wife's pregnant. I'm out of a job. We're broke. I mean, we're fucking broke.
You'll fucking do whatever at this point.
Yeah, whatever you want me to do, I'm here. Just give me a fucking job.
Fucking Sibian, whatever it may be, right?
And I didn't know. I didn't know. So, I know the date, and I'll tell you why I know the date. On February 7th, 1986, my son was born.
Oh, congratulations.
Okay. I'm at the hospital. My wife had to have a C-section. There's a blizzard raging outside. It's just a true story. Blizzard raging outside. I'm at the hospital. So back in 1986, there was no cell phones, right? There was nothing. There was not. We were lucky, to have enough quarters to use the payphone. And they, by the way, they were a quarter by then. They used to be a dime.
We need a Back to the Future time travel machine.
We do. Back to the Future. It's the flux capacitor.
Yeah. What the fuck happened with Doc? Doc. I mean, Back to the Future.
Here we
your
go.
prediction was a little fucked up. That was like 2018. They said we were going to be flying around.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out.
Well, maybe they're just trying to make the most money they can out of this bullshit until they release it.
So we did have things called answering machines. That were these big clunky machines that use cassettes to record cassettes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
To record a message.
voicemail,
It's just voicemail basically, but it's a big clunky machine that you could do it. You could call the machine remotely and listen to your messages. So I called the machine to see because I had just had a baby, the kid was just born, to see if I had any messages. So there was a message on my machine from my friend Jimmy Fink, the DJ, saying, "You got the job at K-Rock. They want you to start Monday." Like, really? Really? So I'm like, holy crap. My wife's in the hospital. I just had a baby. I got this job. I had no idea of what the fuck it was going on. But that's how I got the job. And that's how I was notified I got the job. I went in Monday, and I said, "This is great. Nice to meet everybody. I got to take off tomorrow. My wife's coming home with my baby." And from there, we were on in the afternoons, and then we went to mornings, and it was nothing but fantastic the rest of the way.
And then say like the first 8 years till, like 95.
Mm-hmm.
Like what were you doing?
Well, basically, I would record everything that we do, bits and commercials and, whatever we needed to record for the show, and just making audio whatever they needed to record and mixing bits, sound effects and music and recording IDs and cutting best of tapes for, replays and things.
I bet you love the best of tape.
It was a bitch to cut them up, but...
So can you just show me one time how you cut them? So you would take this...
Well, okay.
Different
So this is about a little... This is wider than a 1/4 inch. This is 1/2 inch. But, some cassettes I had to cut too when they would break, or you had to... Cassettes were like a nightmare.
Can you imagine dealing with this shit again?
No.
I had to pull out tape. It's an original cutting of audio tape. It was cutting 1/4 inch tape. Yeah, I can't even open this. But
I'll get it for you.
I talked to guys in the film industry. They used to. I came in and I did a beta to beta and DVC Pro, beta to DVC Pro.
Yeah.
But before that, they were splicing film together and stuff for actual video too. I'm like, man, I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a cassette, and you see how thin that is. That's an 1/8 of an inch. Okay, that tape is an 1/8 of an inch wide. A lot of times we would deal with broken ones, and if you notice the screws, most of them had screws, so you would unscrew it, take the top off, and you had to seriously, we didn't even have cassette splicing tape. I had to cut in half the 1/4 inch splicing tape to make it an 1/8 of an inch, so I could splice together these goddamn things. They sounded like shit. But we used a lot of them. But 1/4 inch tape was basically what we used to the high quality stuff. So 1/4 inch tape, let's say that's 1/4 inch tape. We get a shot of this? I don't know.
Yeah, I can see it.
So I'm going to lay it down. Let's say the tape is in a splicing block. You got a pen?
Yeah, I got a pen right here.
Okay. So you would rub the tape on the head. You'd rock the machine back and forth, and you'd find the spot you wanted to cut at. Then with a grease pencil, you had a white grease pencil, you'd mark the spot like that, okay? Then you'd take the tape off the head. It was on the head, and you were rocking it back and forth with the reels. Put it in a splicing block, And then you wouldn't take scissors. We didn't use scissors. We used razor blades.
Oh, jeez.
I use one of those carton cutters. That's the best thing you can use as an engineer, because if you use just a single edge razor blade, you would have to put it down. You can always hold a razor knife in your hand and keep going. That's how I was faster than everybody else.
Because you have to put it down.
I didn't have to put it down and cut, go. So you take it and you make a diagonal cut in the splicing block. You'd pull off from the left side what you didn't need. It'd go on the floor. Sometimes it'd be that high when you're cutting out takes and shit you don't need. Then you get to the other point, you rock it, you mark it, you cut it. Now you got 2 separate pieces of tape with a slice that's 45 degrees. And then you take the splicing tape off the dispenser, tape it together, and put it back. And you're right there.
So you were.
And I do that in really quicker than anybody else could do it.
So you were hoping for no mess ups, I guess, right? Like if you're doing something like, God, don't fucking mess up.
Well, that was always true, but you always had a backup plan. My paste and copy was on the floor. So if I actually cut out a piece that it said, "Oh fuck, I needed that piece to be in the script," I would actually go back on the floor, put it back together, pull it all off the floor.
Can you imagine?
Like spaghetti, and find the piece I needed. And that's the copy and paste was on the floor.
That's horrible. That does not sound like right click and left click, copy and paste.
That's it.
That's serious shit.
Right hand was right click, left hand was left. Where is that tape now? I know it's down here somewhere.
And it's all stringed up, the whole 3 hours of tape that's wound up. You're trying to find it.
Yeah, you're trying to find it. Many times that happened. But at that point, it was a skill. You had to really know what you were doing.
Oh, yeah.
In order to be able to edit tape. And, editing tape was probably the most confusing of the job or intricate part of the job. Mixing and recording, that was the easy part.
That was nothing, yeah.
Yeah, the cutting was a bitch sometimes, because you had to be intricate and you had to cut a lot of. I mean, if you had something, if somebody was reading a script and they did this part over and over and over and over and over, you got to find the right take, and you gotta write it down as you're going, and then you got to find it and mark it and cut it and put it together. And there was no saving really. Like the saving was on the floor. So if I had to save something that if I knew I would probably have to go back, if it wasn't like a quick thing. So every time you made an edit, you would instead of rolling it on the floor, you would roll it onto another reel. Save that tape.
Mark it in case you have
Put it on another reel. You had all the outtakes. For Howard, I always saved all the outtakes. Never throw anything away. Always record, never throw away. That's the thing. Never stop recording and never throw away anything. That was the credo.
And was the reason for that so you had plenty to play with if needed?
Tape?
Yeah, so you had plenty of options.
Always had tape.
Yeah.
Blank tape.
Did you ever fuck up like really bad? Like not bad, but where it was like it would say something and then like because maybe you made the wrong cut or did something wrong?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would catch it,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but I've put together things, and the best part of it was making, like you could do it today very easily, and you don't need a lot of training, but making words out of different words.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make somebody say fuck, and they really didn't say fuck,
you
really had to work on it.
Yeah.
You could do that on
truck.
like
truck.
Yeah, you could do that on a digital editor in 2 seconds right now. But to make it happen on tape, you were dealing with little bits of tape like this, to cut together, and you'd have 4 or 5 splices that went that long to get one word.
Right, just so you could get somebody to say fuck that would never say fuck.
That's correct.
So you got to get that.
That's correct.
And tape all that together and then mix it in. Whoa.
I remember.
Whoa. That's a Nobel Prize right there, buddy.
When the OJ trial was happening.
Yeah.
And he would come out. This was an easy one, but it was on tape. We didn't have digital at that point. It was just digital was just coming into its own. He said, I am 100% completely not guilty. That was a paraphrasing. But I turned it into I'm 100% guilty. And there was some guy who was testifying at the OJ trial. This sticks in my mind.
It's funny.
And the guy's name he was an Indian or something, and he had a last name that was like 27 letters long. And they asked him to say, could you spell that out? So he'd repeat, and he had an accent. He'd go, A, Aicha, B. So he he read all these letters. So
That's like a home run for you, right?
Yeah, I just kept making loops of it would go on for like a half hour. The guy didn't stop repeating his name. I mean, but that's like, imagine the letter A, it's just long. You got to keep cutting and cutting and cutting to make it like a loop.
Right, like I'm imagining being in Adobe Premiere or Final Cut like we use now and trying to just get that 1 millisecond of...
Right.
And then trying to get another millisecond of,
now,
but then taping it together.
And
now try pasting it together with tape.
Physically, yeah.
Physically.
Ugh.
Okay. Another trick was loops, okay? You know how it's easy to loop something in digital, okay?
And I just replay.
Okay, we had you know what my loops was? I'll tell you what my loop is. Yeah. Let's say, okay, so I'd record 30 seconds of audio. That's my loop. But it was two ends. It started and it finished. Now, how do you make that loop? You take the tape off the machine. You take the tape off the reels. You splice the two ends together. Now there's your loop. You stretch out the 30 seconds of tape across the room onto a coat rack.
Oh my God.
And you press play on the machine. And the tape
going around.
The tape kept going around and around, and that was your loop.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you save any like of the old thing? Like, do you have any old tapes at your house still, or anything like that? That's all that company would have that, I guess, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
They weren't mine, so I couldn't save any of that.
Do you think they still have them? Some, I mean.
Oh, I know they're
they can
in
archive.
archives. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, in that first 10 years, like 86 to 96, how did you see the show progress?
It was incredible because like I said, I didn't know who
what
he
you
was.
were walking into.
What I was walking into. I had no clue, really. No clue. And my first day there, I walked into the studio when it was on the air because I was always in the studio when I was engineering with board ops on my other jobs. And I wanted to walk in and see his process of working because it did help for me to see actually what he was doing in the studio so I can help him if something went wrong, or I can help him in different areas of whatever he needed in audio or something like that.
And in 86, who was all there?
Well, it was the same, I mean,
Robin,
Howard and Robin and Jackie and Fred and Gary.
Oh, Gary was there. Oh.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And then me. So I walk in the studio during his show, and I'm looking around, and he's like, who the fuck are you? Well, he didn't say fuck, but he wanted to say fuck. Fucking get out of here. That's what he wanted to say. He said, who are you? I said, I'm Scott, your new engineer. And we had met, I think. No, we hadn't met yet. I said, I'm just coming in to see how you do your show. Well, that was the end of that. It was like, well, you don't come in during my show. You don't. When I'm doing a live show, you do not come in the studio. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know, but I like to see how things operate. He goes, you don't need to see. Just listen. You'll know how to do it. I'm like, okay. So that was my first day. I was on the air before I even knew it. I walked out of there like, what just happened? So, yeah.
Then you go back, and then how does it, in 86 to like 89, how is it?
Things were like crazy during that time because the show just kept growing and growing, and we would be on the air, and he would call me in to like do stupid things or, do bits and stuff, or what happened to that tape? Where's that tape? I'm waiting for it. I want to analyze this tape or that tape. So, Yeah, so, and the show kept growing. We added like Philly, and we added Washington, D.C., and it became incredible. And we did a funeral down in Philly for the zookeeper. And they put me in a coffin dressed as a zookeeper with a big mustache and a Hawaiian shirt.
Oh my God.
Who came up with that idea? Do you remember?
Oh, it was probably Jackie and Howard. Everybody was like, we were having a funeral for, DeBella, and you're going to dress up as DeBella, and, we'll put you in a coffin in front of the press conference.
Great.
All right, whatever. I'm like, okay, there we go. That was, and the show just kept growing and growing. It was like amazing. It was like in Philly when we did the funeral at Rittenhouse Square.
Oh, right.
We had like 10,000 people there. And then we did this stage show. And then when we were done with the stage show, we had a car waiting for us behind the stage, a limo. And I tell you, we made it into that limo barely with our lives. You see the Beatles pictures, the rocking the limo? Yeah. They were rocking the limo, literally rocking the limo. Wow. for Howard in Philadelphia. We could barely get out of there.
Until that happened, did you realize how big the show was?
No, not at all. I knew we were getting big, but that was like crazy.
That's Rockstar.
That's Rockstar. Yeah, it's Rockstar. And then shortly after, we went on in L.A., which was,
I remember,
which was huge, and we went out there and had a funeral out there.
Who was that guy? Who played the funeral in that one?
No, I didn't play the funeral. There was a team. There was a team of I forget their names. I can't remember their names, but we beat them, and we had an awesome show out there. And Jessica Hahn and Leslie West was out there, and I was just at that point we were rock stars. We were rock stars.
Now, when you went there in '86, in your gut, or maybe '89, did you know that this is going to be something huge?
I had no idea.
No idea.
Not when I started.
Yeah, but you didn't see it.
In a year or two, I said, "This is crazy. This is different. This is wild." He was always pushing the limit of what you could do on the radio, always. And it was great. It was fantastic. It was like unbelievable to go through this, actually being there and seeing this happen right before your eyes.
Almost like what would you say? Like a change in time. Like you were part of a change in time.
Yeah, it was a pop culture change.
Because radio was always news, sports, music.
Yeah, music. It was dull. It was whatever you turn it on. You get some news. You get some weather. You get some music.
So did you guys when you're thinking of all this stuff, it blew up, right? Howard Stern show went crazy.
It blew up.
Are you guys? What are your hours like? And after, shifts technically shift over, right? Are you guys sitting down discussing ideas? Like, who's coming up with the ideas? Is it kind of like a team effort? Do you have a creative guy more? Or is it like everybody sitting down like, let's try this, let's do this? And how many hours are you putting in a day, would you say, at that time, in the prime? I know you're not working from, it starts at 7 o'clock and you're done at 9 o'clock.
No.
You're going.
No, the show started at 6. I was in the studio by 4 every day. 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And
what time you ending at, or would you guess?
Well, my technically my shift was 4 to noon.
But that never happened.
It would happen rarely, but as time went on, I was in that time period at that station. I was in a union. I had to be in the union because non-union personnel weren't allowed to work equipment.
Oh,
at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, the contract was still relatively strong. Reagan had destroyed the unions earlier with the pilots, and he took unions out. So, but as the contracts went on, we got weaker and weaker, obviously. But at that point, you had to be in the union to work some of the equipment. Not all the equipment, some of the equipment. Well, it was very, very absurd the way the rules were.
Do you think what made the show blow up so much was just because it was so crazy? It was just
it was cutting edge. It was nothing like it. It was nothing like it at all. It was innovative. It was different. It was just pushing the limits of whatever boundaries he was against. So, yeah, he knew exactly what to do. And so getting back to that shift thing. So. Yeah, 4 to 12 was legally in my technical shift, and then after the show, Howard and Jackie and Fred would go in to a meeting, a writing meeting. They would be the writers, you know. And I would be cleaning up stuff and getting ready for the next day's show. And then they would, after the show, after they're done, they'd come in and go, we got a bit to record, blah, 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 blah. We're going to want it on in the morning. So we'd record all the voices, and I had a script. And then my job basically was to figure out how to put music and sound effects into it. So the creative part for me was creating this, you know, imagination thing.
I guess because I asked that because like people think creative people, right? Your minds are always going. You're constantly thinking of stuff, doing stuff. Like it's not like Howard Stern and all you guys got on air at 7 o'clock, walked in at 6 o'clock, got on air at 7, had your fun, did your stuff. It's over at 9 o'clock. You go home.
Right.
Like,
exactly. Didn't happen.
They made a lot of money, right? They made a lot of money over the years, but that was hard work that goes into it.
Really.
And a lot of team, I guess.
A lot of team. A lot of hard work. Everybody worked their ass off. Nobody slacked.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so we record the bit in the afternoon, whatever I can get done in like 1 or 2 hours, you know, because I was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been up since 3 in the morning.
Correct.
Or 2:30 in the morning.
A lot of coffee back then.
Yeah, a lot of coffee. And eventually that's, you know, it gets to you. It wears you down, but that's how we did it. And then I would prepare as much as I could in that afternoon, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd come in and finish up. You know, you wake up and you could be going 100 miles an hour in like a half hour. So, and sometimes I didn't have it finished in time for 6 o'clock.
How'd that go over?
Oh, that didn't go well.
I bet it did. But, you know, that's what makes the greats great.
Yeah.
You know, there's no exceptions. Either you come with it all.
Everybody knew, like, Scott, where, you know, I'll be right there. I was like, oh, coming, almost done.
When you were working TV, what were your supposable hours?
Well, so I worked a few different shifts, but the primary shift that I worked was 3:30 a.m. to, say, noon.
Yeah.
And but I would get into the station at like 2:30 in the morning, and depending on what the news of the day or if it was something crazy, big story, I mean, I might not get home till 3 or 4 in the afternoon from 2:30, and then, you know, got young kids. Wife didn't, you know, the wife.
I know. Yeah, that's exactly.
Ate quick, fell asleep, and was back up again.
Yeah, I would. My bedtime was before my kids' bedtime.
This podcast is brought to you by Monster Energy. Tear into a can of the meanest energy drink on the planet, Monster Energy. It's the ideal combo of the right ingredients in the right proportion to deliver a big bad buzz that only Monster can. Monster packs a powerful punch, has a smooth, easy drinking flavor. Athletes, musicians, co-eds, road warriors, metalheads, geeks, hipsters, and bikers dig it. You will too. Monster Energy is more than just the green OG. Monster has Monster Ultra, Juice Monster, Monster Hydro, Rehab Monster, Dragon Tea, Monster Max, Muscle Monster, and many more. Buy on Amazon, buy on Walmart, or go to monsterenergy.com and believe me, you'll find a place. Unleash the beast. Monster Energy.
Yeah.
You know, 8 o'clock, I was in the bed. 8 o'clock at night. I was like, okay, time to sleep. Dinner was at like 4:30 dinner. I'm like, it's hard to get used to, because I had only worked like a 9 to 5, even though I was in studios. But when I was at ABC, I did, because I was new. I started out at the overnight shift, which was a great shift, by the way, because of the unions at that point. You start at midnight, and you'd be done by 6:30 a.m. because they would give you that extra hour and a half you had as lunch and break times at the end.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
So you basically work 6.5 hours from midnight to 6:30. You were done.
Done. Go home, sleep till noon.
Go home and sleep. Yeah, you got all day. It was a great shift, believe it or not. They got used to it, but then they said, "You're so good, we can't leave you on the overnight," so they put me in the morning shift.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. Then I had to work 8 hours.
And cut tape and trying to find a spaghetti roll tape of one tiny piece for an F, you know.
Exactly. But yeah, I never knew I would be part of the show. I was always behind the scenes. You know, I didn't know what Howard did and got people involved. So, yeah, I became part of the show. I became a character on the show, a staff member, and, you know, it was, just a ride I was going along with, doing my job as I was supposed to do my job. And he just brought everybody in and upped the level of everything.
And then how did it go with the order of people that came? Like, you came in, who was after you?
Yeah, Stuttering
some
John.
of the ones that we all know.
Stuttering John was after me. Oh, God help him.
John.
Yeah, buddy.
He's up there.
Yeah, he's our buddy.
He's my buddy.
Yeah. Good
but
heart. Great
Stuttering John had nightmares. So like I said, we had these cassettes. Okay, Stuttering. When he did his interviews, and his very, very famous and unbelievable interviews that he did out on the street, he would record them on a cassette like this, okay? That's all we had to go out remotely, okay, portably. Cassettes, that was it. And he would come back at 2 a.m. with these interviews. And he'd leave me a note, okay? So most of these cassettes were called C90s, which meant 45 minutes on each side, okay? And you didn't have timing counters at that point. You just had counters, 0 to 100 or 0. But John, he never knew what he did. He would either leave the whole thing rolling and never shut the tape off, or he'd pause it and then at some point, and he'd leave me a note and say, oh, this person's at 20 minutes into John, 20 minutes in? How do I fucking find 20 minutes in? How do I find 1 minute of 20 minutes in? Or 30 minutes in? Because you could not time.
Right, there's no digital
counter.
Yeah.
There's a 0 to whatever counter.
You probably wanted to kill him.
And some of them were, the quality was crappy, and then I had to fix the quality up, and then by the time I had to copy that off the quarter inch tape. And then I had to edit that and fix the quality and then put that on we had cartridges that looked like 8 tracks.
You sure he's your buddy?
Double the word.
He knows every moment of that nightmare that he gave me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find this shit, and Howard's screaming like, where was that interview that John did? I'm like, I'm working on it.
Was
John the day that you met John?
Yeah.
Never changed.
No. No. Yeah, John was John. But I got to tell you, he was great. He had balls.
He had balls.
They would give him questions, and he would just read those questions without a blink of an eye. And it was amazing, the reactions. Yeah.
Who was after John that was around, that stuck around a long time? There wasn't one that was, a couple years and then gone. I always think of you, Gary, Fred, Jackie, even though, he left, but he was there for
Artie was there for a long Artie Lang.
Oh, yeah.
See, to me, it didn't seem like he was there that long.
It was like 10 years.
I was in and out. Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think I had taken a break with Howard, and then when he went to Sirius, I started listening again, and that's when I knew Artie was on.
Right.
I think he was only on Sirius, like 4 years, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Was Beetlejuice on, or was he just every so often was he on?
He said Beetlejuice. Little Beetlejuice.
Oh, Beetlejuice, yeah.
Yeah,
I love
Beetlejuice. When did he pop into the picture?
Beetlejuice was in the late 90s, I think.
Yeah.
He's crazy. I love Beetlejuice.
And,
every time I walk in, I see Beetlejuice. You go, "You the man! Yeah. You the man! Scott, you the man! The engineer!"
And I think I might have asked you between us, but could he really not remember the next day?
No.
Really?
He was really, he had mental issues, obviously. But yeah, it was cool.
You I guess comparing you guys back then, right? Would you say you're like the pioneers for guys like, because of what you did? Think about Johnny Knoxville and those guys, the Jackasses.
Right, the Jackasses.
And then you go now to, I'm going to go bring it up to the next one where you have the Logan brothers, the Paul, Logan or Paul, whatever, Logan Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Them, like they do crazy stuff too. That's how they made a name. Do you think, maybe they would say this, I don't know, but that you guys, because of what you did, helped them to get their careers going too? Possibly. They may say no, but
in my opinion, yes. I
think you would have to.
Yeah.
It was a different medium.
Yeah.
We didn't get onto TV till 94, but from 86, even before when I wasn't there, Howard was doing crazy shit at NBC. We would push the boundaries, like I said. and he was just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it, and that's what got us a TV show on the E network in '94. We started. He did a special, and then that's how we got on TV. And then we kept, TV was really limited in terms of what they can do, and because you know how many strippers.
11 o'clock at night.
I watched it every night at 11 o'clock with my high school sweetheart Ashley.
I remember it, 11 o'clock.
You know how many strippers we had?
Oh, I remember.
Were naked, and
And
so you couldn't
censored out.
It was censored out.
I remember.
You couldn't show it, but yeah, we would do as much as we could, obviously, and the craziness just went on and on and on. It got crazier probably after we started being on TV.
Now, when did your life start to get better? When was,
Better?
Well, easier hardware-wise. When did soundboards start to come out, where you had a soundboard and you could use that?
Probably late 90s, early 2000s. I think my first computer that I had worked on, it was actually a roll-on sound station. A digital sound station that we got in like '99, I think, early 2000. It was its own piece of equipment. It was 8 tracks of digital.
Ooh.
Pro Tools was already out in this huge machine, but they didn't want to spend the money whatever that cost at the time. So,
that wouldn't have helped a little bit earlier.
it wouldn't have helped the biggest radio show in the country, but the company didn't want to spring for the big dollar.
Would that happen to be a guy named Tom that didn't want to do that?
Maybe.
maybe so. Maybe
I don't know
no.
if it's his fault altogether, but eventually he was the one that had to say no. So they got. It was digital, and I started working digitally in late '90s, early 2000s. Finally got the predecessor to Adobe Audition. It was Cool Edit. It was called Cool Edit. It was around 2000 that we started using that. So that's when digital started happening, and I was like, "Wow, this is cool! Cool Edit! Well, look at this.
Future.
The future is here. 5 years late, but the future is here. Back to the future."
Now, when you guys went to E, and now you have to deal with that, that's your job too, then, right?
Well, yeah.
Because you're doing the radio and then you're doing the video.
I'm not doing video. They had a separate crew.
The sound though.
But sound was the sound. They would just take a feed from us. We give them a one cable feed, basically, of audio.
Did it change though when you went to TV? I always imagine, like, you listen to the radio or I listen to the radio. I always had a vision in my head of what the person looked like. So I'm listening to the radio, and I'd hear your voice, and I'd have this image of what you look like.
Oh boy!
And it, then maybe when I see you on TV, I'm like, oh my god, it's totally different. It's not what I thought.
It's everybody.
Did you ever get people to say that to you, like, oh man?
Yeah,
you're not what I listened to.
Everybody has that too.
Yeah.
I have it too. It's like some people I'll see, and and I'll hear them on the radio, and then I see them. I'm like, not what I thought. If I hear a hot chick on the radio, and then I meet her in person, it's like if she sounds really hot on the radio, and then she's not when you meet her.
Like, wow.
How did that happen?
my radar was off on that one, huh?
You got a voice for radio.
Yeah, really. You get a face for radio.
Yeah.
Now, when do you guys actually spend the money on Pro Tools?
When we got to Sirius.
Oh, it didn't happen until then?
Wow.
Didn't happen at K-Rock.
Holy shit.
We had just Adobe Edition. Cool Edit.
So at K-Rock and within E, give me 2 funny, really good stories that stick out in your head. There had to be some funny ones with E. Or it doesn't even have to be with E. Just something before Sirius that sticks out that was really funny and like just crazy.
I
guess it's hard to narrow it down to 2.
It's really hard. I did a push-up contest that was just out of control.
What was that?
I had me and John, of course, got me in trouble. I was bad. I was really, one of those pictures is really old, that one there with the wig on.
Yeah, I'll ask you about.
I'm really overweight. I'm quite overweight there. So I was in bad shape, and they would somebody was in the studio doing push-ups, and John was like, we were in the hallway discussing shit. He goes, how many push-ups do you think you could do? I'm like, if I worked out and got into shape, maybe 15, because I already could do 1 at that point. It was like 1. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can do a lot. I'm not in great shape. I'm overweight. And then he went to Howard. He said, Scott, and I said, well, he said, could you do 20? I go, no, there's no fucking way I can do 20. He's 17. I go, yeah, maybe 17 if I had time to lose weight and work out. And so John went to Howard, of course. Scott thinks he can do 17. So
I think John kept you young.
really.
Kept fucking with you.
So this was around, I don't know, the beginning of November of 96, 97? 97 maybe. Yeah, 97. Okay, so Howard brings me on the air and he says, all right, we'll come up with, blah, 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 X amount of dollars. Everybody was like putting their own money in. Howard said, I'll put up 10,000. Robin said, I'll put up 10,000. Dominic put up $5,000. Fred put up $5,000. So it was like 30-something thousand it came out to. All right, we'll give you $30,000 if you could do 17 push-ups when we come back after Christmas, after the New Year, beginning of January. This was beginning of November. I'm like, okay, 2 months, 17 push-ups.
I'd be doing fuck.
So we got this trainer, Radu. He was the trainer of the Stars at that point. Did Geraldo, did a lot of people. His gym was right down the block from our studio. So I said, all right, we got Radu. So every day after work, imagine this, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
After the shift?
After my shift, I'd run down to the gym. Radu would have me going wacky, going wild, losing weight, put me on a diet, had me running in the gym, throwing, balls and starting to do my push-ups. And then I did that for 6 weeks, and I busted my fucking ass. I was like, oh, my God. And the show was just pumping the shit out of this,
building it up.
After the New Year, Scott's going to come back and see for $30-something thousand if he can do 17 push-ups. I'm like, oh, shit. This is fucking... And I don't even know what my punishment... I don't even remember what my punishment would have been if I didn't... I wouldn't have gotten the money, obviously, but I needed the money at that point, and I really it was like the hardest I've ever worked in my life. And so we came back. I lost like 40 pounds in 2 months. Still was overweight. I can do push-ups in the gym. Not pretty, but I could do them. So the day comes, and Howard, I'm waiting and waiting. He keeps me waiting and getting me pumped up. Keeps me waiting.
Fucking with you.
Yeah. He fucked with me. He's supposed to be at 7, and by the time 9 o'clock comes around,
still waiting.
I'm already pumped. I'm like,
give me another cup of coffee.
I'm taking creatine, whatever that shit is, for the last 2 months, and trying to get my muscles, back to something relevant. They hadn't been in years and years. And how old was I? Like 45 at that time. So day comes, I go in the studio, and they have this referee, and there's like a crowd. There's a crowd. My friends are in the crowd. They set up stands in the studio, and I'm like, let's do it. And I start, and they were ugly. They were ugly. Like they were like a little wobbly. I wasn't straight as an arrow, as they say. But I had to do 18. I think once I hit the ground, so I did 18 very ugly, very weird push-ups, but it never touched the ground on 17 out of those. And then I collapsed on the floor after that. The referee never called me out except for once. And Howard was like all pissed off. Was like, those weren't push-ups. I'm like, you're a referee. And I went fucking bananas. Everybody, it's been replayed 100,000 times. But yeah, eventually he said, admit to me that those weren't real push-ups and you'll get your money.
What'd you do?
What?
What'd you do?
Well, Dominic Barber, our famous attorney, pulled me aside. He said, Just tell him those weren't push-ups.
And did he give you the money?
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Wow.
I got all the money.
Well, congratulations.
So yeah, that was one of the craziest things. Another crazy thing was obviously the funeral and the casket, and then I had to. We bet on the Yankees Cleveland World Series same year, '97. Why is that year just like
the year of hell?
It was the year of hell. So Yankees were in the championship series against Cleveland, '97. And, I'm in the studio and how it goes. So who do you think's going to win the last game, 7th game? Andy Pettitte pitching for the Yankees. I'm like, I think the Yankees will win. Okay, what are you going to do if the Yankees lose?
Oh, boy.
I forget what I was going to get if they won. But if the Yankees lose, Scott, you have to dress up in a bra and panties and go out on the street and walk up and down 56th Street in Manhattan.
Huh.
That was the only year between 95 and 2000 that the Yankees lost.
Oh, no. I bet Stuttering John was smiling from fucking side to side.
Of course.
And Gary. Oh.
So I had to go out on the street in a bra and panties and a dunce cap and walk up and down for like 20 minutes.
Oh, man.
With a mic, and was on the air. Cameras following me all over the place.
And while we're at it, what is that one there? The one we were talking about earlier where you're up top with the wig?
The wig.
Yeah. What was that?
That's at Sirius. I don't know why I put that wig on. There's probably a wig laying around. Somebody plopped it on my head. And I thought that was funny, but that's definitely at Sirius. I could tell by the modern equipment.
Oh, yeah. Some real equipment.
Behind me, yeah.
So how bad were those? I remember when I was listening to K-Rock with Tom and all them, when I was working with Man of Moto Auction, and the fines just kept coming and coming.
Mm-hmm.
How big were the fines?
I don't know. I never got involved.
No, but fined a lot, though.
He got fined. The company got fined. I don't know if he personally got fined.
The company.
I stayed out. I stayed out of it. I was like, I don't want to know. Just keep me working.
You don't want the drama. Just let me do my job.
I wanted to do my job. I didn't get involved in it. That wasn't my job to be involved with that.
Now, before you went to Sirius, you did a little bit of comedy, right? Did you go out on like stand up with John or anybody?
No, at Sirius. I went out with stand up with Artie.
With Artie.
That was during Sirius.
During Sirius.
Yeah.
Okay, so when do you guys decide that you're going to go to Sirius? How does that all come about? You're getting fined like hell. It's getting stricter and stricter. I remember that part. Mm-hmm. And then how does that whole transition take place?
We knew nothing about it. I think toward the end of 2004, Howard mentioned, he started talking about, I'm leaving, I'm going to Sirius. All right. And we knew nothing. Nobody knew anything. Believe me, nobody knew other than Howard. And nobody knew who was going to go along with him because he had to work out a deal. I don't know the money. They have engineering there. That they have other people there. Who knows? So, as it turns out, he kept promoting the fact that he was going to Sirius, and K-Rock kept saying, "We don't want you to promote the fact that you're going to Sirius." So they would censor him on that fact. But as it turns out, at the end, he finally revealed to the staff at the end of 2005, in October maybe, or who was going to come, and he said, "Yeah, I want you to come. I love to work with you, and I want you to continue to work." And I was like, "Okay, great. I love it. Thank you."
Cool. And then when you were with K-Rock, who did the beep button? I remember that. Remember the beep button all the time?
Oh, yeah.
And then Tom would come on and Howard like, "Why would you do that?" So how much was it delayed, and how did the beep thing work?
We were delayed there at like 40 seconds.
Holy hell!
Oh.
Make sure you had time to hit that beep.
I'm sure.
So you could hit it twice. It was segments. Because usually a delay would be 7 seconds. If somebody said fuck, you had 7 seconds to hit the button. But then it would take time to build back up. The technology was slow, so you wouldn't hear it and you wouldn't miss anything else. So they had because we didn't just have fuck. We had you fucking asshole motherfucker.
Oh yeah, you got a full sentence.
So we
hold it down.
well, you hit it, and then you would have to hit it again. So because if you didn't have enough time, it would get on the air. So there were a number of people, believe it or not. It was not only Tom, and then he passed it on to other people to do that.
To hit the beat button. So a lot of people were hitting the beat button. You needed a team just for the beat button.
I mean, it got out eventually because Howard said somebody's hitting a button on me.
Yeah.
Because somebody, like Gary or somebody, would call up and say, "I didn't hear that." They bleeped it out. Howard didn't know what was getting bleeped at the time, but until he was told by somebody.
But he wasn't happy about that. There was a few sit-downs about that situation.
I guess
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It wasn't my area to get involved with. I was not.
Yeah, you stayed away from
concerned.
all that shit.
No.
So now, how was the transition from K-Rock to Sirius? That's a hell of a move. New building, new everything.
Everything was new.
Take me through that.
Yeah, that was pretty wild because we had off for the holidays. It was Christmas time. So he finished up like mid-December, and then we were supposed to come back January 6th, 9th, whatever that day fucking was. And I had gotten the job there, but I had two jobs. I was still working at K-Rock.
Oh, shit.
While I was working at Sirius.
Did they know that?
They knew. I told them I was leaving, but they wanted me to stay and finish up some shit. So, yeah, I would... my vacation week, I was at Sirius getting things ready. And then I came back actually at the beginning of January at K-Rock and worked like a week to finish out my job while I was working at Sirius.
Very cool, by the way. Well, it's very cool that you went back and finished it and just didn't run.
Yeah, because they had hired David Lee Roth to follow Howard, when Howard left. So I was kind of like, David came to me and he said, "Can you show me how to work some of this equipment?" I'm like, okay. It was something called an instant replay with the sounds, all the sound drops and everything. And so I'm teaching David Lee Roth how to work this equipment. I couldn't sing, but I can show him how to work. Yeah. I said, "Could you tell me how you go?" Yeah, so that was cool. And
how long did that show last? Not long.
Yeah, only a couple of years. That didn't do well at all.
Nah. It's hard to follow Howard in that show.
Yeah, but what happened with Bubba? Remember Bubba Love Sponge?
Yeah, Bubba came on to Sirius when Howard came, like a short time later, because he had two channels. He had Scott Farrell and he had Bubba the Love Sponge, and they, again, I don't know the particulars on, they were good while they were there, and I don't know why they left. It wasn't my job to get involved with that stuff. So yeah, that was good. Bubba I liked and got to know Bubba really well, and then Brent, eventually Brent, who was Bubba's producer, came to work at the Howard Stern show, probably in the early teens, 13, 14, somewhere. I'm not exactly sure. 15. I can't even keep track. But he came to work for us on the Howard Stern show, Brent Hadley.
How fun was it working with Artie Lang?
Artie was the greatest you can imagine.
He just seems so nice and funny and all.
But,
he's just a great guy. But
the but, and the but is he was an angry drug addict.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
When he got wasted, he don't want to know him. You didn't want to know him. And then when he was straight, he was like the best. I mean, he took me on this tour of one show in Cleveland, a comedy show. I worked out a 5-minute bit.
Did you?
Yeah, with material and everything, and it was the worst. 3,000 people in this theater.
Still,
I got wasted backstage. I kept drinking. I just kept driving. I was like so fucking nervous. And I went out there. Of course, I got booed. Boo, boo, boo. And like Artie comes out, and he's like, I think we should cut this off right now. I was out there 5 or 10 minutes, but it was great. It was awesome.
So now when you get to Sirius, you got Artie, you have everything going on. You got all this new cool technology and Pro Tools.
Pro Tools.
So now you have to learn everything new again?
Yeah, we had Adobe Audition at that point. We still had that, because that's what most people can operate easily. It was a very user-friendly interface and very easily adaptable to people that were learning or had to do stuff like that. Pro Tools was actually a lot more complicated, very complicated. I still, to this day, couldn't tell you everything that it does because it does a million things. You learn what you have to learn as you have to learn it. I need to do this. Okay, I'll learn how to do that. I need to do that. I'll learn how to do that. You can't learn everything that it does in whatever. You got to be actually using those effects or whatever to learn how to use them. So as you approach those effects and like, I need to do this, so how do we do this? So I'll figure that out. Okay. So that's how I learned how to do it.
Can you pull up tab 3 and then 2? Now, why do you think, so that's Pro Tools, right? So what the hell
that's a work of art to me. Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. That's the Mona Lisa to me.
Now, what is all that shit?
Okay. So when somebody looks at that, that's a simulated soundboard. That's what soundboards look like back in the day. So
okay, so like
you see
God.
One strip where he's got the cursor, right?
Yeah.
You see one strip. Now, that is the same. Well, not that one, but that's a little different because that's a special effects. But take that one, right? That strip is the same as every other strip on that on that picture.
Okay.
So if you know one, you know how to operate everything.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem as complicated as it looks right there. So if you learn how to work one strip, you know how to work everything. And those are tracks. So if you put drums on one, you put guitar on another, you put, cymbals on one, and you put brass on one, and, whatever, bass on another. So those are individual tracks, and all the knobs are fade knobs, like left, right. It says 100 left, pan knobs, 100 right. You want to pan the sound to the middle. The stereo sound, let's get stereo tracks. So you got left, you got right. You can pan them together and make it mono. You can pan them to one side and things like that. Then you got EQs on the top. You got gain controls and so on and so forth.
In that example, when they say CPU 1, 2, do they have 8 CPUs hooked up in this example to Pro Tools? Is that what the CPU 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
It depends on what's built into the processor that you're using.
And then go to tab 2. So now that's the big boy, I guess, now, right? That's the physical thing?
Yeah, I mean...
This episode is brought to you by Fiji. More than just water.
This is not just rock. It's ancient volcanic rock that filters tropical rain, giving it double the electrolytes and its signature soft, smooth taste. It's not just water. It's Fiji water.
You can put those inside of Macs. That's a physical board as Pro Tools was built. I never used a physical board like that for Pro Tools. It was always inside a Mac, and you had a screen that you would work off of, or 2 screens. So
go to all products, Rob. Now, do you think that people, to some extent, went to Logic because it's easier to learn? Because I know more people that use Logic than Pro Tools, but I've always heard that Pro Tools is better.
I love Pro Tools. I mean, Logic is easier. Pro Tools is really, really complicated, like I said. You can do a million things with it. I did record my son's band on Pro Tools.
Oh, cool.
Which was, recording music is basically what Pro Tools is all about.
None of these are the ones you use, right?
What's that?
None of these ones up here that we're looking at are one that you use, right?
They've come a long way since I've used.
So
every basic Pro Tools probably right there on the right. Compose,
right
record, edit, and mix.
Click on that one. Probably shows what. So yeah. So you did your son's own Pro Tools, huh?
I did it serious. I recorded it serious. Howard yelled at me, but I did it on my own time and I got permission. So, I mean, it's just an amazing tool to record music with. I mean, you can do anything and everything. You lay it out, I mean, the way they used to record in the 50s and 60s was mono, and they'd record everything at once. It was live. Now, you couldn't track anything. You couldn't just record drums and then go back and add a bass and then go back and add a guitar and then go back and add a keyboard, and you had to do it all at once back in the day.
Now, when you we had talked about this before. When you had some performers in like Lady Gaga, you remember that one? Listening to that one, I'll never forget that.
She
blew the house down. Wow.
Really?
Now, what did that look like on that board? Or because you were using Pro Tools then when
we were recording on Pro Tools. The live mix wasn't on Pro Tools. We recorded everything into Pro Tools, so we can either correct or mix it better later if there wasn't a great on-air live sound. But she just had a piano and vocal. It wasn't complicated for her. So, but when we had Metallica, and that was complicated. They brought stacks into the small studio, which was amazing. But Lady Gaga, I had only known her as a pop dance artist at that point when she came on the show, and she was cool. I liked some of her songs. But she sat down and did a ballad version of one of her dance tunes. And I'm sitting right next to her, standing right next to her. Basically, it was unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't believe the voice on that woman. She showed it off, obviously, that you couldn't really tell in the dance stuff. I mean, she sang her heart out, and it was just tremendous.
Yeah, because remember when she first came out, it was all that it was pop, dance songs. You knew she had a voice, but you didn't know until that. I had goosebumps in the car.
Top 5.
Yeah. It was amazing.
She's top 5.
And I mean, I remember that particular interview. He had interviewed her for a while.
Yeah.
And then she went and sang. And fucking.
She's top 5.
It blew me away, too, being right there.
Was there anybody that you could compare to her vocally that you were able to see in person?
She just went. She was probably the best. It's a surprise. I mean, other people, you knew how they were going to sing.
Yeah.
But she just blew everybody away with that performance because I never heard her do a ballad like that and sing like that. It was always the dance stuff. But yeah, I mean, but through the years, I've seen so many and been fortunate enough to work with so many that it just was like a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream. It was
it never ends. Right?
It was like unbelievable sitting there next to some of my idols when I was a teenager in the late 60s and early 70s and listening to all this music, and all of a sudden I'm like engineering for these people. It's like Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson was like, one of my favorite bands is a teenager, and then he's sitting there and I'm, next to him, and there's just meeting, they didn't perform, but meeting McCartney and Ringo Starr.
That's something for everybody.
I mean,
yeah.
Come on.
Really,
just
that's when you gotta go.
Meeting them,
Whatever the fuck this is when you got to go. Whatever these science people say, you still go, what the fuck?
Billy Joel,
Billy Joel. Wow.
He was on the show, and I'm sitting there, mixing for him and standing next to him.
What about bands? What was a really good band that shocked you when they perform live? Because like you said, like the ones that they just have it. Well,
I mean, the Foo Fighters were on many times.
Yeah.
I love Dave Grohl. I mean,
I was surprised how good they were live, especially when they're coming through it. Right?
Foo Fighters were tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous band. Staind, do you remember Staind?
Oh, yeah. Aaron Lewis. I loved Aaron Lewis.
He's fucking crazy.
And his fucking lyrics were killer.
Yeah, he would come in.
He would come over.
He would come in when we were at K-Rock. He would come in. I have this like supply closet next to my studio that I kept tape in and whatever. And he was like, where can I, light up a joint? And go in there. He would go in the supply closet and just light up a joint. It's like Tom would become like, what's going on around here?
That first album was insane.
Staind was amazing. We did a karaoke contest, speaking of crazy, on air. And Stain was my backup. It was our backup band. Everybody in the show did a karaoke with Stain. I did Ohio by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I won the contest. Stain was my backup band.
How cool is that? Right?
And I'm singing with Stain. I mean, it was great. And we did a karaoke contest in Vegas, and Train was our backup band.
Train.
Train. I love Train.
They're still going.
Train is still. I just saw them twice this year. They were here at West Palm, and I saw them in Chicago. And they're coming back in March.
They still draw big crowds.
They're going to be at Hard Rock Live in March.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you want to go.
Yeah,
let
hell
me know.
yeah, I want to go.
I know those guys, and they're tremendous people. All the whole band, Pat and Jerry, the guitarist, and Hector. They're just I got to know them because they were on the show so much, and they're really they're unbelievable live. I mean, they blow you away. I know their music is kind of poppy and stuff, but he does Zeppelin like nobody. He does Zeppelin. They do a lot of some covers, not a lot. They did ABBA, Dancing Queen, because they had Jewel on the show with them when I saw him here.
I remember Jewel, yeah.
Yeah, Jewel. Yeah, they're very, what's the word when you can do all types of different things? Like you could do pop, you could do rock.
Yeah.
You can, like you're that talented where you're able to mix in other genres with your own. And that's
they
what
can
they
do
can
everything, rock, pop. I mean, they did a cover of the Doobie Brothers, and
they still draw big crowds too.
They do. They sell out everywhere they go, and they're just amazing.
He and I were talking, I think yesterday or the day before, about Creed. Did you guys ever have Creed in?
I think
Scott Stapp.
we may have had. He was going out with Avril Lavigne. No, who was going out with Avril?
Avril Lavigne. I know who you're talking about. Can you Google that? Yeah. Who was dating Avril Lavigne? We were just talking about Creed because I thought they were great.
Yeah, I don't think they were good. I don't think we had them on. No.
Yeah, they had. He and I were talking that the lead singer he had gotten made fun of in the beginning a lot just because of the voice, but fucking killed it. And Nirvana was great too.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have Nirvana? No, too late.
Too late.
Man, he could sing, huh? Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
But his girl, she was in.
She was
an interesting one.
The blonde. What can I think of her name?
She dated Chad Kroeger from Nickelback.
Oh, right. That's who we had in.
Yeah.
Chad Kroeger and her. Yeah. Was it Scott Stapp? Chad Kroeger. She sang on the show live.
Who was Rob? Who were you saying?
The blonde.
The blonde that was dating Kurt Cobain.
Married to him.
Married to her.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, how can we not think
I know.
her?
It's like
I could picture her face. I could picture the dress.
Yeah. She was on the show many times.
Many times. We'll find it in
Courtney Love?
Courtney Love.
Yeah, Courtney. Yeah. Of course. Courtney Love was crazy. But she was on the show. She never performed on the show.
Did you ever have Whitney Houston on?
No, not Whitney. Yeah, Courtney was crazy. We had her on, and then, in the 90s, you name, STP was on a lot of times, and they were.
It was the big. Now you're meeting all these people,
right.
And then you also got to go home.
I got to work with them. I'm a professional. I can't act like, can I have your autograph? Can I have a picture? Couldn't do that.
That's what made you special.
Can't do that. Never did that. I would never do that.
But then you have to pinch yourself again and say, I'm not only meeting all these people, I'm the engineer of the biggest show in the world.
I'm working with these people.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're on the biggest show in the world.
Correct.
That I think paved the way for what I'm doing right now, what Rogan's doing, what all these people, in my opinion.
And, it was wild. It was amazing when I look back to, did that happen?
Who was the hottest chick you've ever had? I mean, Pamela Anderson was on, right?
Pamela was on, and
was Carmen Electra.
Carmen was.
She was because remember AJ was on with AJ.
Yeah,
the guy I talked. He was part of. He was came on with Rob. Remember he came in and
I love
Howard
Carmen
Electra.
Black. She was dating Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
It was on. They were on together.
That's what AJ. He was on with you. He came in. You shook his hand. You came in with him.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of Pamela Anderson, did you hear the crazy story about Bill Belichick? By the way, with Pamela Anderson.
No, I haven't.
No.
So Bill Belichick. This was on a podcast. I can't remember who, former player of Bill Belichick's, I think. I can look it up. But so it was, I don't know what Pro Bowl it was, a Pro Bowl from years ago. And I guess they got to invite some players. They get voted, but then they get to pick if like somebody gets hurt, they get to pick another player. So Bill Belichick picked like some punter, I think, or some player, and he picked him. And the only reason why he picked him is because he was dating Pamela Anderson at the time, and they said like he wanted to see her by the pool, like hanging out by the pool. Hey. So Bill Belichick, this is crazy because Bill Belichick's always just like. So Bill Belichick goes up to the guys. The guys walking past, goes, "Hey, where is she?" He goes, "Oh, she didn't come." He goes, "Well, then why the fuck did I pick you to be on the team?" He goes.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of hot chicks that we had on,
Now, when did you become such a good bowler?
Bowling.
When I was looking you up this morning, I saw Scott's quite of a bowler.
Oh.
Yeah.
As in tournaments.
300s?
I have bowled 300s. Yeah.
Wow.
When did that all start, Scott?
I bowled all my life since I was a kid.
Did you?
Yeah.
I was wondering. I looked him up. I'm like, fucking Scott, tournament this, tournament that, won this fucking
You
shit.
got one of those?
Yeah.
I actually was invited by the Professional Bowls Tour.
Wow.
To
Congratulations.
go on tour with them out in Vegas. And I bowled, I think, 2010 or 11 in the Professional World Series of Bowling.
You hear that?
Shit.
Now, you know what's funny?
I didn't finish last. I didn't do well, but I didn't finish last.
You made it, though. Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw that.
Really hard.
I saw that, and I was going to make it a tab, but you know why I didn't? I thought, I wonder if fucking Stuttering John's behind this.
No. That was,
I know now, but do you understand why I would maybe think that?
Right. So Tom Clark, who's still currently involved with the PBA, invited me to come out, and, we talked about it on the show, and the show sent me out, and filmed everything that I did out in Vegas. And, and then after that, I would go on another couple of more, events through the years. And then now I'm eligible for the senior tour.
You're going to do it?
I don't know. Maybe,
Did you
in the future.
You ever meet that crazy bowler? He's I think he's a sign like thing, Pete Weber.
Oh, Pete Weber, yeah.
Yeah.
Pete Weber, I was at I was sitting in the audience at his most famous, the one they clipped from where he's yelling, he just won the tournament, just, me, brother, I'm the man.
Yeah.
I was right there.
Really?
In the front row. You could see me a lot of times in the clips. I'm sitting I was at that tournament.
Oh, shit.
That was in Jersey.
Wow. Now,
Carroll Lanes in New Brunswick.
So I always try to understand this. So, like, a genius like you with sound, like, seriously, with sound and engineering, how does that mix with bowling? There has to be something.
It doesn't really.
But there has to be something with bowling. Like, is it the accuracy and then the accuracy of, like, the sonic coming through the sound? Or
I don't know.
I'm just fucking crazy.
I bowled since I was like 10 in leagues and, as a kid bowler, and just kept bowling in leagues my whole life. And I was really never that good until I got older, believe it or not, because I never had the time to put into it. Once I started my career as an engineer, that was my career. I stopped bowling for like 15 years. Wow. And then one day, one of my friends said, "Hey, we're joining a league, a mixed league. You want to join with your wife? That's a night out." And I'm like, "Oh, all right. What the hell? Well, for fun." It was like a travel league. Like if you won, you won a weekend trip somewhere.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It wasn't money.
They used to have them in Pennsylvania. I've seen in the newspaper. It'd be like, get 10 guys together, you go bowl, everybody sucks and is drunk, but if you're good, you get to the next one, and then at the end, you get like a Caribbean cruise for 3 days to some shithole.
It was like that, So I said, fine, and I just started bowling, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm doing pretty well. It wasn't serious, and I'm bowling, okay. And then some other friend said, "Hey, we're in a men's league. Serious money. You want to join?" I'm like, okay, let's join. Let's join. So I was, in the travel league, I was averaging in like the mid 170s, which is not great. And then I got to bowl.
170 sounds pretty damn good to me.
Then I got to bowl with guys and serious, and I stepped up my equipment and got good equipment. The PBA was nice enough to hook me up with the manufacturers like Brunswick, and I was able to get really great equipment, and I went, and then I was averaging 215, like that at that point. 10.
What's a good tip for us bumper bowlers?
Yeah, mine goes straight down the fucking thing and curve off.
Can you give us a couple
How do you
tips
curve
here?
the ball?
Oh, well, you got to, there's a lot of, you can't just curve if you pick up a ball at the lanes, a house ball as we call them, you can't just curve a house ball.
In other words, a shit ball.
Yeah.
Shit ball, you can't curve.
Ball shit.
There are weights inside the ball, and when you get it drilled through your fingers, the weights, the way you tell the guy drilling it, I want the ball to hook. So they put the weights are tilted to where you put your fingers, so when you throw it, the weights will make the ball hook.
So we don't suck. We just don't have the right ball.
Yeah, I knew it.
You can add to it, and then you roll it off your fingertips instead of your fingers all the way in, so that gives it a lot of roll.
Yeah, I put my midget fingers all the way in, and
that gives it a lot of forward roll. And the best thing to do is if you're just an amateur bowler, just make sure your arm goes straight out. That's all you got to do.
like a follow
I
through.
do that all the time.
The follow through.
Straight.
Yeah, but straight like this. Like sometimes you'll go like that, or you'll go like that, and you don't realize it. It's like golf when I hit a ball and I said that was good, and the balls wind up in the water. You got to follow through and point your arm at the head pin. That's basically.
I think that's where I mess up because I'm looking at a target rather like even if it's the head pin, but I'm wrong with it because my hand's all the way in.
Right.
I'm just focused on that one thing, and then that's where.
But I would never at this point as a bowler, a good bowler, don't aim like that. I look down at the arrows. There's an arrow over there.
Yeah.
To the right. I shoot for that arrow because I know the ball's going to hook back. I don't aim at the head pin. I aim at the arrow on the floor.
Well, I've never looked at the arrow once in my life. Have you?
I
mean, I knew that they were there, but that was about it.
Aim at the arrows because I know if I hit that arrow or I hit that spot right in front of me, that ball's going to go out and then come back.
That would be like one of the most. Me and my buddies, like basketball, competitive, but bowling would always be the most fucking competitive thing. We'd almost get in fights over bowling.
Bowling and pool.
Yeah, pool too. Yeah,
play.
right. Pool and bowling.
Bowling also is when you get up to a professional level, they put oil in the lanes. The oil makes the ball do different things. There's different types of oil. There's different thicknesses of oil. There's different lengths of oil, how far out it goes on the lane. So depending on how they oil the lane, with the same ball and the same grip, it'll be totally different between different oil and patterns. They call them patterns.
Now, when you're on that level, do you know that? Like, do you know if you're going to go bowl here, this is how they oil it?
Mm-hmm.
So
usually know.
Oh, you don't know?
No, you usually do know.
I do know. Okay.
Yeah, you know.
So it's equivalent to, say, like an NFL. If we're playing on turf, all right, this weekend we're playing on turf, so you might do a little different so you don't hurt, or grass.
It's like if you're golfing and it's windy versus not windy.
Oh, right, there you go.
Oh, okay, I got to compensate for the wind that's blowing left to right, or it's blowing against me. I got to hit it lower, or things like that. That's what you got to, okay, so this oil is going to make the ball slide more, so it won't hook as much. So then I got to know to move my positioning on the lane, so I'm not throwing it for a big hook. I'm throwing it straighter.
Damn, that's so interesting. I never knew that. It was like different fields.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that either, actually.
Yeah, it can be crazy
real.
at the professional level. When you're bowling in a league in a local local bowling alley, they oil that lane the same way all the time. And once you know how they oil it, whether it be oily or dry, or what the conditions are going to be every day, they're going to be relatively the same in a league. But when you're bowling professionally, it's different every time. They tell you what the pattern is and what it's called and what it will do. You know what it's going to be, but it's different every time.
One thing about bowling too, I think this from my back in my hometown and here too, the best fucking chicken wings ever. I don't know why, but
that's why you can't bowl. You got greasy fingers.
That's probably
you put them in the bowl.
Oh, dude, the best fucking chicken wings ever from bowling alleys. I don't know why.
So I actually haven't bowled since before the pandemic.
Wow.
Because I had shoulder surgery, and then the pandemic came when I was ready to go back to bowling. My shoulder healed, and then I just wouldn't go in a bowling alley. It was indoors. nobody
Yeah.
wanted to go indoors in a bowling
Nobody
alley
knew anything.
during a
Yeah.
pandemic. So I'm going to get back. I want to go soon, but who knows what's, so I haven't bowled in like 3 years.
Muscle memory.
I golf. I'm outside.
Yeah, that's right. Your new hobby is golfing, hitting it on the water, and try not to get eaten in Florida by an
Right,
alligator.
that's right, exactly.
Remember, you're in Florida now, buddy.
I almost did.
Don't get
I
that ball.
I had a bowl in the water, and I'm walking to the water, and there, guess what?
You saw an
I
alligator?
saw an alligator right crawling out of the water.
What course was that at? So I know
That was Palm Beach course, Osprey. Osprey.
Yeah.
Southern Palm Beach. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
you can have the
You
ball,
keep
buddy.
that.
Don't worry about it.
You can have that title. It's
50 cents you can have. Oh, yeah.
Did you ever hear of the Sibian before Howard, the show?
Mm-mm.
Nobody heard of the Sibian before Howard.
I just want to see if it. Did you? I think were you guys the first to come out? And, like,
As far as
show
I
up?
know, but, like, again, I'm not
Right.
privy. I never heard of it before that.
Did the staff know or the upper management? Did they know that was about to come on the show?
No.
I didn't think so.
We book a guest, and it's like, okay, the guy's got this Sibian thing that girls sit on. And like, okay.
And it became this huge thing.
We just thought it was like a vibrator of some type that they sit on, but it had attachments.
So what?
It had all kinds of attachments that would,
Who had to set that up, Scott?
Gary.
Yeah.
I had to put a mic by it, but that's okay.
When you guys hit E, right? When you become, we hear you on the radio, but now we get to see you,
Mm-hmm.
know who you are. How much did your life change then? When you're going out, is like everyone noticing you at this point?
Yes.
Was it annoying at some point, or was it, this is cool? Like
It was cool. It's still cool, and I don't get recognized as much now because it's been a while.
Yeah.
But actually, a couple of years ago, I'm down in Delray Beach, walking downtown. Some guy goes, "Hey, you're Scott, from the Stern Show." I'm like, "Yeah.
That's cool.
How you doing?" And so occasionally it'll happen now, but it was a lot back then when we were on E, especially when we were on E. And then it got less when we went to Sirius because we were on pay TV. Howard TV was a subscription. So
Any stalkers or weird people that?
I did once, but we take care of those things,
Yeah. Now, when he first went to Sirius, I don't think he really lost anything. Like, viewer-wise, did the viewers go down a lot initially?
Again,
You don't know the
I don't
analytics?
I
was
wouldn't
just
know.
curious.
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that we had as many listeners on Sirius in the beginning that we had at K-Rock and the nationwide stations we had. So, but
Just for the simple
eventually
pack,
we did.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of listeners on Sirius, so it was great. I mean, and then he could he still had to push boundaries, believe it or not. And even today, I mean, I'm not there anymore, but there's a lot of censorship even on satellite radio. I'm not talking about Howard only,
Right? Just in general.
Just in general on the internet, people. Don't
even get me started.
We know, even with podcasts and
Yeah.
things, they want to censor everything. Not so much the government, but the companies that control these, places that they put on podcasts, and they want to act like the laws are the FCC laws. I mean, they'll go a little further than that. I mean, but Sirius allows language, like we're doing here. So that's good, but there's still topics that are taboo to everybody.
All across the map.
What they are.
Yeah. We don't need to throw them. I think everybody does.
Yeah. So, there's still stuff that you can't talk about. You shouldn't talk about. Why, I don't know. You should be able to talk about everything.
Whatever you want.
In a
within reason, right?
Yeah, in a discussion that's fair and even.
Yeah.
You can't go on and just degrade some race, for degrading them.
Right.
If you're having a rational conversation with somebody about a race or a gender, that's fine. You're not degrading anybody, but
That's why I thought it was such bullshit what they did to Joe Rogan. He was the first one to have on like the Malones, the doctors, and all that stuff going against the agenda.
Right.
And then when he did that, they did what you were talking about before. They cut up, 13 years of the N-word. But what they cut up, they didn't put in the fact that he was sitting across from another African American, and they were joking around saying the N-word, like just joking.
No,
like, you know what I mean?
I get it.
And because he went against the grain of what the agenda, they made him look like a racist. But the guy he's sitting next to on one of them was Chappelle, who he goes on fucking tour with.
Yeah.
And they're just joking as comedians.
I know.
And that's the type of shit they do. And they did it with you guys.
Even comedians, I feel bad for. They can't even do racy shows live.
I heard
they're not even broadcasting.
Scott,
they're doing shows live in front of an audience that's not even going out anywhere, and they're getting censored.
I heard Chris Rock is tearing shit up. He's when you walk in, no phone. They're taking the phone, and he is just ripping.
Good for him.
Story through the grapevine, and I heard he's got a real good one.
He was on the show a number of times.
Yeah,
great guy, and so good.
Funny as hell.
Good for him. Yeah, he's really funny.
Who do you think's the best comedian?
Oh,
top two.
Come on.
Okay, you got Murphy. What do you give Eddie Murphy for one?
Come on, Eddie Murphy. But I worked, and I got to know one of the best ever comedians. Well, in my opinion, the best ever comedian was George Carlin.
Everyone says George Carlin. See, that was before my time.
Yeah.
Everybody says
George Carlin. Absolutely. Obviously, Rodney Dangerfield, who I got to meet. I never met Carlin, but I got to know and work with Sam Kinison.
Oh, that's another one, too.
Sam Kinison was beyond amazing. And it's too bad he had to die.
So, Carlin and Kinison, the main guys I always hear talk about them, Joey Diaz, Rogan, Rock, Murphy, and I can't remember his name. It was so funny. Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac.
Those were their
mentors.
Like mentors.
Right.
And who's the best, like, alive? Those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Bernie, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the two Carlin was amazing, just amazing, and he was clean, basically clean. He'd just make up shit that you would like, everyday stuff that you would like. Oh yeah, that's funny. I mean, he would
just write every day. He would just write anything he saw, like this cup, that cup, this thing, and then over time he would just turn it into, okay, that scissors was with that tape.
Right. I would remember this bit that I bought a Carlin album like in the 70s, and it was like this bit called Football Baseball. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it was like he'd go into this bit like, football is, I'm a football player and I can beat your ass. And then, baseball, you float down the and he'd be like, it was like totally opposite. Like, football is this big macho game, and baseball is just like little hit the ball and run to first base thing.
And he made it so fun,
but
without the vulgarity.
Yeah, without the vulgarity. It was just so funny.
Speaking of which, I didn't realize how into sports you were.
I'm very into sports.
So, we know your favorite baseball team is.
The Mets.
Favorite hockey team?
Hockey I'm not into. The basketball I'm not into. Football and baseball are my sports.
Those are the two.
And bowling.
And bowling.
Bowling I participated in.
Who's your basketball team?
It was the Knicks, but I got just sick of them.
You can't.
Everybody.
You can't.
You even had Phil Jackson.
Yeah, I know. Oh, God.
Who is not a, I don't think he's a good team owner.
Right.
He should have been on the floor.
Yeah.
Now, if he would have had that team and coached that team,
he couldn't
would have been
GM
different.
that team. It was terrible. He didn't care. He didn't do anything. He didn't. I mean, he took the money and just ran.
Yeah.
Ran for the hills.
Wonder why Jeannie Buss left him, or why he left Jeannie Buss. Who knows?
Relationships.
Yeah.
Women, men, whatever.
Who's gonna win the Super Bowl?
This year, I'd have to say Philly.
Yeah.
Got a Philly out of it.
I'd have to say Philly. I mean, but Philly or San Fran, one of those two.
San Fran looks tough. Yeah.
So who's going to be in the Super Bowl?
I have Philly. Philly is the number one, and then from the AFC.
What you think, not like the record.
Oh, what I think doesn't really matter.
No, it does matter. I want to know what you think, not stats.
Yeah, I'm a Jet fan too, but they're not going to be in it. There's no fucking way. They have no chance.
They need a quarterback. They need a quarterback.
Yeah, they have no chance. Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Who we got?
Buffalo City.
I want to see Buffalo.
Remember I texted you last week and I thought they were going to lose to the Lions.
Buffalo.
I was waiting to text you.
I want to see Buffalo, Philly.
What do you think, Rob? Has it changed?
So I still have my Eagles, but I don't like to say that because I'm a big jinx guy, so I don't say it. So I think so, but until they're there. But I'm still gonna say the Eagles, and my original pick, which is not looking so good now, was the Eagles-Dolphins.
Dolphins, yeah.
And it would be Tua versus Hurts, the guy who replaced Hurts at Alabama, all that type of stuff. The Dolphins have kind of fallen off, and they're playing in Buffalo this week. In
It's a big
15
game.
inches of snow it's supposed to be.
Saturday night.
So
big game.
I'm going to switch the Dolphins, and I'm going Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid versus the Eagles.
That's what I think too.
Boom.
That's a good game.
Boom.
I'd like to see the only real New York team, though.
Yeah.
in the Super Bowl.
I think it's going to be San Francisco looks fucking good.
They look good. They got McCaffrey and
Debo got hurt.
They lost Garoppolo, but
yeah, I think Eagles, Kansas City. That's what I think.
Stays.
And then who wins that? I don't know. Andy Reid does not win Super Bowls. He pissed me off quite a few times.
He won one.
And McNabb.
there you go.
Fucking McNabb. Yeah, that's my pick. But so who do you think next year for basketball?
Basketball.
That's right. You're
I'm not into basketball.
Baseball. Baseball.
Baseball next year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Mets just spent a fortune. Steve Cohen just
Verlander
lit up the fucking baseball world and spent twice as much as everybody else.
I can't believe they did that. They're playing with Yankee numbers right now.
No, they're playing with their own.
Yeah, he's got his own
record numbers
above
and beyond the Yankees, and he's paying in tax, just luxury tax, more than some teams' full payroll. Is, believe it or not.
I can't believe his MLB makes that much goddamn money.
His luxury tax is going to be somewhere in the 70 million range.
Wow.
70 to 80 million range just for the tax because he went over the.
Tax.
Some teams don't spend that much on their full payroll.
The Rays and the Marlins probably.
Right. So he's spending. It'll probably be close to 350 in payroll, then plus the tax. Which is beyond anything anybody's ever spent.
Is MLB making that kind of money?
You tell me. He has that money. He's not spending MLB money. He's spending his own money.
His own money.
He's going to lose money on this season because there's no way they can make that money back.
Hell no.
It's his money. He's one of the richest guys in the world.
Fuck.
So he wants that. He was a fan growing up. He's a fan of the Mets, and he wants to make sure that they win a championship.
This would have been, and everyone who may have watched this in the past, all Philly for me except for baseball. I grew up a Mets fan.
There you go.
Because I saw Mr. Met had
day one I met him.
And all the teams in that division, the Braves and the Phillies, are spending like crazy. They got great teams, all three of them. It's going to be a dogfight.
You know how much it kills me though, as being a Philly sports fan and everything.
Yeah.
And I hate the Phillies. And then they go to the World Series this year.
I couldn't
and
believe
the Mets, if the Mets won, the Mets were going to the World Series.
I know.
I told it that. I said it, and I think they would have won it this year. This would have been the Mets year. DeGrom,
I know.
all that, they would have fucking won it this year. I promise you they would have.
You think they win it next year? Or you think they need to?
Yeah. If they would have beat Atlanta one game at the end of the year, they would have skipped and had the bye,
right?
And they would have gone all the way. I think they would have gone all the way.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Look and see how much they spent real quick.
This year?
Yeah. You think they'll win next year? Or you think it will take a year or two to get comfortable with it?
It's hard. They got a hard division to win. Listen, they'll do great in the regular season. The playoffs are a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Always. It doesn't matter who. The Phillies, the Mets won 101. Phillies won 89, finished in third place. The Phillies are in the World Series.
Yeah.
Why? Were they the best team? Not for the whole season, but they got hot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
The playoffs are a crapshoot. Usually, if you have you're not going to win if you have the best team. Always, you're not going to happen.
Across 6 contracts
Shoot that up
so
here?
far. Yep. Hold on.
I can't imagine.
Just 6 contracts so far here. It says.
Blow that up a little bit.
Let me see. Let's see here. and I'll show you where I'm talking about. In total, across these 6 contracts, the Mets have dished out $461.6 million.
Wow.
The annual figure is about $129 million in new payroll for the 2023 season. The Mets and owner Steve Cohen are serious about winning and contending for the World Series every year. This offseason is another.
And they're not done yet. They're not done yet.
Yeah, and
they're not done yet.
They might go after that Rodon, the other pitcher.
Look, Scott, the Mets' current payroll for 23 is estimated, which you know they're shooting low, $345 million, and he spent $500 million.
Another absurd. It is another.
That's a little above your payroll.
Spree's Instagram left. The Mets will have greater than all of the following teams' payrolls combined: the Royals, the Rays, the Reds, the Pirates, the Orioles, and the A's. Combine them all together, they have more.
They have
$78 million in luxury tax.
Yeah, that's what
right on point. My goodness.
Yeah.
I hope just for the guys. Who the hell is he? Come on.
Cohen's a hedge fund guy.
Oh fuck, hedge fund guy.
Hedge
All
fund.
right, there you go. We'll make that back tomorrow.
Yeah, he's not a crypto guy.
Well, wow.
He
Good.
got arrested. He got arrested. They got him.
He's not
somebody's got
FTX. Yeah, they got him. And baseball he was into sponsoring baseball last year. The umpires had FTX on their uniforms.
They all got smoked.
They all got fucked. Every one of them.
Last thing, who's the best quarterback of all time?
Got to be Brady. I mean, I never liked Brady, but I mean,
You know what we have to do? We haven't done it. We got to do a
How can you-
fucking running tally.
how can you deny?
Ask him.
How
Can you deny it, Rob? You got 2 guys.
I mean,
here
there
asking
may
you.
be some better for shorter periods of time.
I agree with that.
Maybe for 2 years or 3 years, somebody was better than Brady for that. I
Okay.
mean, for 20 fucking years, over 20 years he's playing. You can't beat that.
He's got
6 Super Bowl.
And he's got a shit line this year, but the second game of this season, he threw an 80-yard pass, and they compared it to 2004, and it looked identical. At 42, getting divorced
I know.
and gotten destroyed by crypto.
You can't beat that.
So how can you explain Joe Montana?
Yeah, he was an FC.
Rob.
So I'll explain my theory for Tom Brady that not people will hate and they'll comment on this. And yes, I am a Tom Brady hater. And I would go back to a couple examples. Drew Brees never gets hurt. We may not hear of Tom Brady. People say, no, we still would have. I don't know.
Can't count that.
You have the snowball with the Raiders, the tuck rule.
It wasn't Drew Brees. It was.
Oh, sorry, not Drew Brees. Drew Bledsoe. I meant
Drew Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah.
You have the snow game with the Raiders, the tuck rule. That rule comes out of nowhere. They talk about Spygate. They talk about the deflated balls. So I just wonder if some of this stuff doesn't happen, if Brady even has as many Super Bowl rings as he has.
But then how does he leave the Patriots in 1 year and win a Super Bowl with an entirely new team and get beat for the first 6 games?
Yeah, I mean, I can't explain that one.
There you go.
All right.
All right, Scott, man. I hope we could do this again.
Oh, yeah,
it's always
definitely.
fun just joking around.
Awesome,
hanging out.
man.
Maybe we'll get Stuttering John in again.
Oh boy.
One day.
Come on, we'll get him here and we'll bust his balls.
Yeah,
Come
definitely.
on.
And Brent wants to shoot out.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So
Love to see
we'll
Brent.
get Brent out.
Yeah.
He's a very kind guy.
Brent's great. Love
He
Brent.
is. All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Take care.
All righty.